Thanks. And just a little housekeeping, if everyone could put themselves on mute, because sometimes we forget to do that. But okay, so you can see by my slide, I've titled this Money Lessons from 9/11. Given the time period that we're in, 9/11 is tomorrow. I thought this might be appropriate. Okay, so most of us remember where we were on 9/11, right? That very day. And I was here. I was in this exact building. It's my high school, and it was only an hour drive from the towers. And I still remember my economics teacher that day was Mr. Lindner, and he told us in class that day, he said, guys, today may be the saddest day in American history. And I'll never forget him saying that. Fast forward to just a couple of years ago, it was actually the 20th anniversary, and Newsweek wrote an article that asked, have we learned the right lessons from 9/11? Now, this question can go in a lot of different directions, but for the next few minutes, I'd like us to focus on the money lessons, particularly the money lessons not taught in school. What I'm about to share, I didn't get in high school that year or the next year, nor did I get in my college studies of international business and a degree in business economics. And the first thing I'd like us to think about is the concept of how we value something. Okay, so take a look at this slide, and I think you'll be able to relate. See, it's pretty simple, but before we have something, we place a pretty high value on it. Once we have it, our appreciation typically declines, but if we lose it, the realized value typically shoots right back up. So we can apply this to a lot of things. You can apply it to a car, a home, a job, a significant other, our health, right? You name it, and I think it's a good concept to grasp. Now, there's a reason they say you never know what you have till what you have is gone, right? So keep this in the back of your head. Okay. The second piece I'd like you to keep in mind is this. Everyone is unique and has value as a person. Okay, we've all messed up at times in the past, and we'll likely do more in the future. But don't get too down on yourself. Always remember you have value and you can create more going forward. Okay. But one thing 9/11 highlighted was that although everyone has value as a person, human economic values change based off what you do for work. So in our legal system, there's a position called special master. That's when the court appoints an expert who gives legal authority to make prompt recommendations in high conflict crisis situations. And they're all about measuring the facts. So in 2001, when the towers got hit, a prominent attorney by the name of Kenneth Feinberg was chosen as special master of the US government's September 11th Victim Compensation Fund. He was tasked to determine what each person who was compromised due to this event was entitled to in dollars. So whether it was due to injury, anticipated complications, or even a death. And so here's the big question. How much money is your life worth? Now, life is priceless, but everyone who works carries an economic value. And most people have never really heard of this prior to 9/11, but life insurance companies have actually studied this exact question for hundreds of years. See, there's something called human life value. It's a measurement of your economic worth in dollars. And it's actually pretty simple to calculate a ballpark figure if we factor in someone's age, their income, anticipated working years. And I'll show you a few hypothetical examples in how this relates to different scenarios. So our first money lesson from 9/11 is this. Income matters. Okay, we're going to use my friend Bob here, who's totally made up. Bob's 40 years old. He makes $100,000 a year. But due to the events of 9/11, he had become ill, and the doctor said he'll be fine, but he can't work for the next 2 years. Now, for most people, if you don't work, you don't get paid. And I would say that that's pretty fair, right? If you're an employer, would you want to pay someone who's not working? Probably not. But for Bob's family, that amounts to losing out on $200,000. Now I put two easy solutions on the screen. One, Bob could have all that money saved up already. Then he can continue living life as accustomed, right? Or two, Bob could have had a long-term disability insurance policy in place. If you don't already have this through work, it typically costs around 2% of your income to protect your paycheck. Your income matters. Do you guys remember this slide? How we value something related to income, right? Before Bob had his job, he saw value in getting one. As he worked, he lived life, paid bills, things were good. But then when his income stopped, he and his family were reminded how valuable his paycheck was. And if you've ever been out of work, you know exactly what this feels like. And I can remember being in that situation many years ago. It's tough, both economically and mentally. So income matters. We always want to keep it flowing. Our second lesson from 9/11 is this: human life value is real. So we're going to use Bob again. 40 years old, still making 100,000 a year. But this time, Bob didn't get hurt for a couple of years. Bob actually passed away. And this meant that his family lost his income, not just for a couple of years, but forever, in perpetuity. And assuming Bob would have worked till age 65, that's $100,000 times 25 years for a total of $2.5 million that's no longer going to be coming into his household. See, 9/11 reminded us that unexpected tragedies happen. Life is priceless, but there's a cost to living. Again, a couple easy solutions I put on the screen to continue affording life. One, have all that money saved up. Now, for most people, I wouldn't say that that's very pragmatic, right? At age 40, I don't know too many 40-year-olds who have a couple $1 million just sitting on the sideline. Two is get a life insurance policy. As long as you're healthy, it's one of the most cost-effective ways to secure your human life value. And some people think, I can't afford life insurance. Money's so tight. Listen, in my 15-year career, I have never met someone that I couldn't help find coverage that fits their budget. And reports constantly show that the majority of people, when they estimate life insurance costs, overestimate it by 3 times or more. Our third lesson from 9/11 is that ongoing help is costly. Now, some of you may have heard the term long-term care before. It's a topic that is discussed more and more each year, uh, more so as people kind of enter their retirement years. Long-term care does not automatically mean nursing home, which many people think. It's simply a term used when someone needs help with things that most of us take for granted each and every day. Things like bathing, eating, walking from room to room. These are actually called activities of daily living, or ADLs. And when someone needs help with these things, they're in need of long-term care. Now, some of you have parents going through this right now, and it's great if you can be their caretaker, but at some point, it typically becomes a burden for the family, both emotionally and economically. And there are different levels of care. People can receive care at home or at a facility. I was surprised, and you may be surprised to hear this, but reports are currently showing that 70% of adults who are age 65 or older will need long-term care at some point in their remaining years. And it's pretty costly. Here's a report just from last year, and you'll see that costs depend on level of care and where you live. So this shows national averages versus Alabama. All right, so you can see that to get care in a facility, the national average is over $100,000 a year. And to get care at home, it's maybe around 60% of that. Alabama is obviously less here. And I can tell you, personally, I've worked with people, I have clients who have dealt with this situation. It's certainly more costly up here in the Northeast than it is over in Alabama. So we'll look at Bob for a minute again. You'll notice on this slide, I have a lot of question marks here. because for most people, they think that the need for long-term care pops up in their later years. And although that's typically the case, I personally have a friend who was diagnosed with MS in his early 20s, and unfortunately, it progressed quickly. He's now 40 years old. He needs long-term care. He's needed it the entire time. He'll likely need it the rest of his life. That's a pretty challenging financial journey to be on. So to wrap up, here's a summary. 3 money lessons from 9/11. 1, income matters. It dictates your lifestyle. Without it, you don't get to live where you are, drive what you have, travel, or eat where you want. So you have to protect your income. You may have long-term disability insurance through work, but it's likely pretty low cost if you don't to get it outside of work. 2, human life value is real. So get life insurance on top of whatever you have through your work benefits as early as possible, because what you have through work is likely not sufficient and will likely be terminated when you leave, like most of your benefits. You probably know this already, but you can't get life insurance after someone passes away. There are no do-overs, so you want to get this right before you can. And 3, ongoing costs, ongoing help is pretty costly. Long-term care is a growing market of concern. Healthcare costs continue to rise rapidly. It pays to be healthy. And if you know someone approaching their retirement years, this is an area you should encourage them to at least have a discussion around. Otherwise, what they've worked to build their entire life can be at risk. If you have any questions on any of this stuff, here's my contact information. And remember, if money's something you want to keep having, talk to Davin.